Solo, a Star Wars story, hits theaters and extremely underperforms at the box office, just like we all knew it would, but not necessarily for the right reasons, and we'll talk about those in a sec. But just to put into perspective how badly Solo actually did, let's have a quick laugh at these numbers. For reference, we're gonna look at how The Last Jedi did, and we can see here that in the first week it pulled 296 million, and another 168 million the second week. Then, if we check up on Solo, this movie only pulled 119 million the first week, and took a 65% drop the second week, only pulling 41 million. That's insane! And to the one person who says, well, that's because it was a standalone film and wasn't part of the main trilogy. No! That's not the reason why! Look at Rogue One! The first weekend it pulled 220 million right behind The Last Jedi, and 153 million, almost the same amount the next week. Solo is the first official Star Wars movie to actually flop. Aside from the Christmas special, we don't talk about that.
Step 1, we stir the mixture. Stir, 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 stir. Stir, 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 stir.
Plus, The Last Jedi only came out in December, and we're already 5 months into the next year, and they're rushing another movie out to cash in on all those diehard fans' wallets. But you know what? We're not gonna give you any more of our money, Disney. We've had it up to here with you, and it's about time that you get a taste of what failure tastes like. If you guys are tired of Disney trying to squeeze all the money they can from this franchise, be sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you would have rather gotten an Obi-Wan standalone film. But today, I want to come together as a community to critically review Solo and hear what you, the viewer, has to say about it. Now, by no means was it all bad. We'll go over the good stuff real quick just to give it the little credit it deserves, but there was a lot of things that were so very off in this movie. But share this video with any of your other diehard Star Wars friends. I want to hear what the true fans really thought of the film. So after I watched the movie, I was going through some of the comments on the last Solo video where we talked about Disney hiring the wrong actor to play Han, and I found this comment that just hit the nail on the head. Mr. Goob Goobers commented, no matter how the story progressed, I just couldn't immerse myself in this new Han. I felt like I was watching a distant relative of Han. It just felt off. His voice was nasally and no lighting or makeup could make him show even the slightest resemblance to Han. I constantly tried to convince myself it was just because he's young, but Alden just couldn't portray that unique charm or even the mannerisms that Harrison made so iconic. Han himself was the biggest problem for me. And I think this statement holds very true for a lot of us. Disney's Alden Ehrenreich showed no resemblance to Han throughout the entire movie, and I stopped trying to convince myself that he was Han Solo about halfway through. It just felt like I was watching a movie about some random kid in the Star Wars universe, and there was no connection to the smuggler we all love. But that being said, surprisingly, that alone didn't ruin the movie for me, and I was really happy because that was my biggest concern going into the theater, but I quickly accepted and moved on from the fact that this is just not Han Solo. I saw it as a random adventure movie inside this beautiful universe. Now, let's start with the things they got right in this movie. So here come a bunch of juicy spoilers just in case you haven't seen the movie yet and we're planning on seeing it for some reason. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for this specifically because you don't want to go see the movie and give Disney any more of your money. So this is just for that one person out there who hasn't seen it yet and doesn't want it spoiled. But one of the things that really helped settle this movie into the Star Wars universe for me was all the different references to other characters and moments in the universe. I loved hearing Val reference Bossk when she asked why they had picked up these amateurs for the job instead. And we also learned that Beckett pushed Aurra Sing off a cliff to her death, which cleared Lando's debt with her and helped our heroes out in the story. Lando mentions Felucia once, and I love that we got to see Beckett wear Lando's skiff-guard armor he used in Return of the Jedi when they snuck into the Kessel Mines. The scene where Chewie plays holochess on the Falcon for the first time was hilarious. Seeing him try to wipe off all the pieces after he got mad was golden. And I love Darth Maul. He was so cool. I got goosebumps seeing him in a live-action Star Wars film again. I'm a huge supporter of Ray Park, the original Darth Maul, and Sam Witwer, who played Maul's voice throughout the Clone Wars, and I'm so happy Disney used the original actors instead of trying to replace them and remake another character. I also loved how many different planets and aliens they used. This was one of the best parts of the movie by far. All the aliens and different species seemed so real and looked absolutely incredible. The planets were over the top. For example, that shot of Beckett's team leaving Mimban after they picked up Han and Chewie was one of my favorite shots. Oh, did anyone catch the Phantom Menace scene mirror? When the Falcon's power went out and they were in the mall, then Han and Kira play with the wires until there's a zap, and then the lights come back on and they're right in front of this giant monster's eyeball. It was an awesome monster and I loved the little head nod, but even that was done poorly. The lightning strike was a lazy writing choice for the power to go out, and there's no dialogue throughout the entire scene. Ooh, and also, real quick, this was my first time seeing anything of Donald Glover's, and I've got to say, he did such an incredible job at capturing the essence of Lando Calrissian that Billy D. Williams previously established in Empire. And that's exactly what Ehrenreich didn't do with his character. He never resembled Han Solo in the slightest bit, and not looking or sounding like him didn't help either. But but the writers changing Lando's sexuality all of a sudden is ridiculous. And I don't want to get too much into it and the politics behind it because that alone deserves its own video, but changing the way we've seen a character for the last 30 years is the wrong way to add diversity into a franchise. But one of my favorite little parts of the movie was Beckett's weapon skills. The way he's always spinning his pistols around and firing them upside down, pew pew, was so cool. This is something that if 10-year-old me saw, I would go home after school each day and practice doing this for hours until I could do it right. And in fact, I kind of still want to do that now, but we don't have time for that because now we're moving on to the juicy part of the video. I want to talk about everything blatantly wrong with Solo, and that includes what you guys thought about it too. So share this with a friend and go comment down below what you thought was the worst thing about the movie, and I'll be in the comments reading everything you guys have to say. And if you're new here, subscribe. I'd love to see you come back for the next video and talk with you in the comments. But okay, now where on earth do we even start? Let's go with some of the lazy writing we saw. So, right off the bat, I didn't like the scene where Han got his last name. It was such a meaningless excuse for such an iconic name to be given. A random Imperial officer signing him up for the Empire says, because he doesn't have a people, we'll call him Han Solo. Get it? Like it's a joke because he's solo? Leave it to Disney. This doesn't make any sense. I don't care. We don't care about some random officer. If you're going to explore his past and all these moments that you're so set on showing us, at least make them something special. The character development was pretty poor overall. Han and Kira finally bump into each other after 3 years and they act completely normal, like nothing happened. Throughout their screen time, they went on a bunch of car chases and had a lot of group moments and quite a few conversations explaining the plot to the audience, but they barely ever had any real emotional connection and they just felt so shallow. And Beckett and Han could have developed such a genuine mentor-apprentice relationship that would have made his betrayal and death so much more emotional towards the end, but instead we got the same thing that happened with Kira, just another surface level pure relationship with no emotional connection whatsoever. And I really don't like how everyone kept telling us how great Han is. The space monkey was like, I don't care, the kid's growing on me, as in Disney implying that you think, I don't care what the internet says, I like him. Lando says that he likes this kid and he's adorable, and when they're trying to figure out why Han wanted in on the job, Val says something along the lines of, look at him, of course it's a girl, inferring he's some stud, almost as if Disney's trying to make him the Troy Bolton of Star Wars over here. No shocker there, a lover boy icon for the girls would sell a lot of merchandise, and we know how much Disney loves that quick buck. And Han keeps going on about himself being the best pilot in the galaxy when we never see him do anything that would suggest he's even an above average pilot. I don't get why they don't just take any one of the many opportunities they had of him flying or driving and had him do some crazy skilled moves or something. I mean, there was one move they pulled to evade the last TIE fighter that almost killed them all, but he had just seen a friend try it and actually watched him kill himself trying. I mean, what if they took the first chase scene when he's driving the tow speeder with Kira and have him do some things similar to what we see in the first chase of Baby Driver? Baby showed some real skill. We didn't have to be told by any of the characters that he was a good driver. We could see it for ourselves. And same with the scene in the Kessel Mines. When Han went up to the guard and kicked him between the legs and bonked him in the helmet with a rod, Beckett and Kira, who are both very skilled fighters, go on to say how impressive that was multiple times. Just more of Disney telling us how great Han Solo is, and I was like, what the heck? Liar! Why are you so taken back by his fighting skills after he took a cheap shot on a guard who wasn't ready? Like, the director should have taken this opportunity to showcase some great fighting skills from Han that he learned from a friend or something. And there was a big deal about Han's lucky dice before the movie and the significance they played, but to be honest, I forgot they were even in the movie. In the first chase scene when Han puts them on a knob on the windshield of his tow speeder, they should have gone flying off after he was rammed multiple times and made those fast turns, and especially when he flipped it on its side and smashed through that alleyway, there's no way those dice are still dangling on that little knob after that. And moving on to Kira's character, Emilia Clarke did a great job acting, but I didn't like how abruptly they brought her character to an end. They set up this whole potential other plot with her going to work closely with Darth Maul on his home planet just to get rid of her character so Han is single for Leia in 10 years. It would have been much better if they had any sort of emotional connection and she ended up dying in his arms or something. But then it would be like she was his first love that he never got a chance to grow old with, and Leia was his second pick, which wouldn't work out so well, so maybe comment any ideas on how Kira should have died. And in fact, the whole movie seemed to be more about her than it was about Han. It went from her trying to escape with this boy to failing and being stuck on this planet until she starts working for this boss gangster, then gets to revisit her old friend Lando and takes her friends on a mission where she sneaks everyone into the Kessel Mines, then has to save everyone as they're trying to escape, and then 10 minutes later saves everyone again by plugging L3 into the Falcon for directions out of the mall. She later ends up betraying Han in front of the Crime Lord, then psych, she betrays the Crime Lord and kills him like she's wanted to for the last few years, I'm sure. Then boom, she goes back to betraying Han because she's now loyal to Maul and goes to his home planet to start working with him more closely. I'm telling you, this was a movie about Kira. I don't know why they called it Solo. But next, let's talk about L3. This was a blatant political pawn used to push a bunch of agendas down our throat as we tried to watch a Star Wars movie. And political themes aren't bad by any means. Even the original trilogy had some subtle underlying political aspects. But when it's the focal point of everything this character says and what she's about, it goes too far. And I think that's what ruined her character. Like, the scene when she was explaining that Lando was in love with her to Kira could have and should have worked, and it should have been funny, but it didn't work. It was just a pile of cringe because Lando did actually love her. They made him pansexual in this movie and was actually attracted to his droid. That scene should have been a funny moment of this droid thinking that her master is in love with her when he's really not, and it should be funny because you can't fall in love with a droid. But instead, it was just Disney telling us that, yeah, a droid and a human can be a couple because equality. Why can't they be together? It just felt like they were trying to subtly influence you, and it got a bit annoying after a while. All L3's quick remarks about droid rights and equality became not funny and got old really quick, and I just wasn't sad when she died when I should have been. Similar to Holdo in The Last Jedi. She was so much of a jerk to Poe and built up this negative persona around her that I was kind of glad when she was the one to sacrifice herself. But let's keep moving though onto the last main topic, which is the soundtrack. And it's okay if you liked it, but I just wasn't the biggest fan of the score for this film. John Williams made the theme, which was great and all, but the rest of the film was scored by John Powell, and you could really tell. It just didn't sound like a Star Wars movie. It sounded like Up, or a children's adventure movie. This is the guy that apparently scored How to Train Your Dragon, Rio, Ice Age, Kung Fu Panda, Horton Hears a Who, and 20 or 30 other kids movies, and you could tell. There were a few remixes of iconic Star Wars tracks that just didn't work. The Imperial March remix sounded like something you'd hear on a playground at Disneyland, and was just way too upbeat and happy to be taken seriously. And Powell seemed to think that every time a new antagonist revealed themselves, he had to let the audience know by playing a big, generic, overwhelming brrrr, and it kind of got annoying after the second or third time. And just a few things to wrap up real quick. Beckett's wife dies by killing herself with explosives right in front of him, and he doesn't mourn her death at all. It was the weirdest thing. It was like the writers were intent on not putting any emotion into this movie. They went out of their way to show Beckett making a pile of rocks for her as a grave, but he didn't even seem the least bit sad during the whole scene, and he dropped her entirely and just moved on. And don't get me wrong, there were some things I liked about this movie. There was just an overwhelming amount of things that made it evident that this was a rush job and they reshot entirely and pushed out to grab a quick summer buck. And now that I've said what I want to think, I want you to tell me what you thought about in the comments and send it to your friends to join in on the discussion. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you stopping by and would love to see you in the next video. But I'm going to be in the comments reading what you have to say, and this is a little off topic, but I am super excited. I'm going to be in California next week to go to VidCon and hang out with a bunch of friends. We've got a whole house packed full of creators, and I can't wait to be back in Cali. I'm looking forward to it so much. Follow me on Twitter @MichaelJ to follow along, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.
Hey kid, I'm putting together a crew. You in?